We have some surprising Texans updates, and no offense, they're not really the greatest news, but it has major implications on this weekend's game against the Jaguars. Let's start it off with the injury report and just kind of go through thoughts about how this game is going to go against Jacksonville, the series, how they've matched up over the years, and how the Texans haven't been swept since 2017. So, going to be a great episode. Thank you guys for joining. Welcome to Texans Digest. Mike Zanetti here, as we are going to run through what I just said. But if you're new to the channel, hit that sub button for all Texans content. But I think it's only right that we start with the injury report. And there are so many names, but before we get to the injury report, have to mention a couple things. Matthew Wright signed in free agency after the deadline because Kaimi Fairbairn has looking like he's not expected to play this weekend. So again, if he's not going to be playing former Jaguar Matthew Wright, maybe he knocks in a game winner against his old team, revenge kind of. That'd be a great story for him. But however, Titus Howard could be missing. He's got a concussion he's dealing with. Pretty sure he's been expected not to play. Not technically ruled out yet, but most likely not going to play. So Ed Ingram also nursing a knee injury. Titus Howard, CJ Stroud, Jalen Pitre, Will Anderson. I mean, I might as well just go to the graphic right now, just show you how injured the Houston Texans are. I mean, this injury report is bad. You got so many names. Christian Harris, he's not playing with a shin. I mean, he hasn't practiced all week. You have many guys that haven't practiced all week. Harrison Bryant did not practice Wednesday, Thursday. Again, we'll get the Friday one shortly, but again, it's kind of looking like a lot of these guys aren't going to play. Stroud's already out. Pitre did not play. He's got a concussion. He's most likely going to be out. Howard, a concussion. He's probably going to be out. It's just a lot of unfortunate situations. You got Will Anderson's hurt. DeMeco Autry did return to practice. Nick Chubb returned to practice Thursday. Again, so many injuries. I wouldn't be worried about Schultz at the bottom there because he's just kind of always playing hurt. But this is just such an unfortunate circumstance. However, I will say that the Texans, although they don't have all of their guys, I really wouldn't be surprised if they're in this game. Speaking of all the tackle injuries, you have Titus Howard hurt, Ed Ingram hurt. I'm very nervous to see what this offensive line is going to look like, but the good news, at least, is the rookie Ariante Ursary has allowed only 7.1% of pressure rate. That's the 8th lowest amongst left tackles with 100-plus blocking snaps. So that's pretty good. Second lowest for a rookie. Not bad. So we'll take it. But the biggest problem is Davis Mills is a backup quarterback, and he already didn't look great against the Broncos defense, which is a very good defense. Jaguars have a solid defense as well. They're very good at stopping the run. Not like the Texans have any kind of run game, but speaking of which, the Texans don't have a run game. Let's take a look and show you why the Texans don't have a run game. So here we go. Texans. We want to hear the stats inside the 3-yard line. They have ran 13 plays this season inside the 3-yard line, and there's all the numbers for you. They have not scored a touchdown on 13 plays inside the 3-yard line. There's 10 plays inside the 2-yard line. They also have not scored a touchdown on. So just little things, but those are the kind of things you need to punch into the end zone. Am I right? So, again, not the greatest, but I mean, you have Nick Caley also saying, hey, we want to be physical. We want to run the ball down the hill. And it's like, okay, you haven't done that all year. There's a difference between saying we want to run the ball downhill and we actually can run the ball downhill, because you have to understand you can't run the ball downhill. If you at least maybe traded, and obviously I'm not going to get into the trade deadline stuff, but at least if you think about the fact if you traded for Breece Hall, you could have some more upside. But again, the offensive line is not blocking the greatest for the run game, so it's not like the Texans have this great run game. Nick Chubb, older, not necessarily what he once was outside of his prime. I love Nick Chubb to death, but he is not what he once was. However, Woody Marks, he needs to be implemented more. I think if Chubb is limited this week, expect to see him maybe, even if he plays, expect to see him 20 to 30% of the time. As far as the Jaguars series, I think it's really interesting that the Texans have not been swept by this team since 2017. And before that, it was 2009. So again, this is kind of a rivalry where the Texans do not lose 2 games to the Jaguars in a season. It's just very unlikely. And because you have so many guys out this week, or at least it's trending not great for the Texans, it makes me think they're going to win the game. Now, I did say this last week about Denver, and we'll just put the standings up. But I did say this last week about Denver, how I thought, everything was trending downward for the Texans. It didn't look the greatest. You just had a bit. I mean, that's the thing. You have a big win against the Niners. There's big expectations for you to beat the Broncos, and you come up short. Now, to be fair, if you did have Stroud play the whole game and he actually learned how to slide, they probably would be in that game. But if you can win against the Jaguars, you're number 9 in the AFC right now, and the AFC is wide open. You're not catching the Colts at 7-2. They are a pretty dominant team, in my opinion. And the next best team you could catch is the team in your own division, the Jaguars, who are in at the number 7th spot. And you play the Chiefs in a couple weeks. We'll put the schedule up for the Texans because I think that's another big factor is that, hey, you got a couple teams you got to beat this season. So as far as the Texans, you see that number 8th spot. They got to catch the Chiefs. Well, guess what? They got to play the Chiefs in a few weeks. But again, that's a little bit later in the season, week 14. But first, you got Jacksonville, okay? This is not a crazy hard game. I'm going to say that because last game, you could see it at the top, week 3, 17-10. Stroud didn't play the greatest, but again, I think with Davis Mills, it's going to be harder to score points. Now, Mills looked like he was feeding Nico Collins. He looked like he was feeding him well. And I will also say Jalen Noel did not get a lot of playing time, and he was kind of Stroud's number 1 target when Nico and Kirk were out. But again, that's just honestly coaching. You have to put the players in that are going to do well. Now, looking at the rest of the schedule, it is tough. It is not impossible. I'm not trying to hold out hope for Texans fans, but look at the schedule. You beat Jacksonville. You beat Tennessee. Buffalo's going to be a hard game. Indy's going to be a hard game. Kansas City's going to be a hard game. But you can beat Arizona. You could beat Vegas. You could beat the Chargers. Those are 5 games that you can win this season, and that'll make it 8. If you can beat the Chiefs for the tiebreaker, that's 9. If you could split with the Colts, that's 10 games. So I'm pretty sure if the Texans have 3 wins, say they beat Jacksonville, that's 4. 5 with the Titans, 6 with the Cardinals, 7 with the Raiders, 8 with the Chargers. You split with the Colts, that's 9. You beat the Chiefs for the tiebreaker, that's 10. So very easily, you can still sneak into this playoff picture. I'll put it back up for you, but you can very, very easily sneak into this playoff picture. Again, I don't have the Colts record for you, or the schedule at least, but the good news is if the Ravens somehow go on a run, you do have the tiebreaker over them already. The Ravens put themselves in a hole. I don't think the Bengals are going to be much of a competition, but just to look for the bright side for Houston, you got to start winning, and you got to start winning now, and that all starts with Jacksonville, and it's going to be a tough road. I will say that. It's going to be tough. We're looking at DeMeco Ryans, but yeah, I mean, let me know your thoughts on this game. The Texans look depleted. They don't look like a good team. Their defense, Bo Nix said it last week, they're playing the best football of any team. This is the best defense in the NFL, not only statistically, but I mean, honestly, as a fan, yeah, it could be a little biased to say that your defense is the best in the league. But seriously, watching this team play and how bad the offense is playing, I am just in amazement of how we are wasting this defensive roster because of coaching malpractice. Again, people are saying DeMeco Ryans should be on the hot seat after this year. I really don't think it's DeMeco's fault. It's whoever hired Nick Caley. I'm not going to hate on Nick Caley, but he hasn't brought the best system words are hard, folks. The Texans, he didn't bring the best system there. So, again, I don't really know what the future is. If you can maybe sneak into the playoffs, have a good second half of the year, and maybe finish out the year strong, that's what you're looking for. You had a bad first half of the year. You can have a good second half. You could close things out and understand what has to be done to go out and try and win a Super Bowl. That's the goal when you're playing football. The Texans have not won a Super Bowl. They've actually never been to an AFC championship. So that's the goal. It was the goal last year for me with how good the defense is. And if you even remotely sneak into the playoffs and the Texans can just do a little bit on offense, just a little bit, that's all you need. So That's all I got for you. Texans Jags this weekend. I think they can get the win even with Davis Mills just because of how good the defense is. And like I said, the Texans do not get swept by this team. So it's just a weird game to where the Texans will probably get out by the edge of their teeth. It'll probably be like a 16-13 game. Trevor Lawrence did not look good in that first half against the Raiders. Give him credit. He bounced back in the second half. But yeah, I think this is going to be a lot lower scoring of a game than we're expecting. A lot of division games this weekend. But whew. This is just a weird season considering how bad the offense is playing. Give C.J. Stroud another week. Hopefully he gets well from that concussion, as well as a lot of the other players that are dealing with concussions like Pitre and Howard. But this is a really weird season. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that sub button if you're new. Texans Digest, as always. We'll see you. After the Jags beat the Texans, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a weird game, and I have probably lost hope for most of the season. But again, once again, thanks for watching. Appreciate everybody. As always, Mike Zanetti, Texans Digest. We'll see you in the next episode.